been a dramatic 24 hours in America. In a moment, we'll have the latest on the massive manhunt for the gunman who shot and killed Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband in their Brooklyn Park home. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is calling it a, quote, politically motivated assassination. But first, we begin with the split screen that unfolded on live television. Last night, tanks rolled down Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. in a military parade ostensibly meant to honor the Army's 250th anniversary, an event that happened to also fall on President Trump's 79th birthday. With the price tag of $45 million, Trump reveled in the spectacle and touted America's military might. But just hours earlier, another one of our country's strengths was on display: the constitutional right to protest. Millions of people across big cities, small towns took to the streets to march against the Trump administration and to declare that America is no place for kings.
I'm worried for my kids, my trans child, and everybody else like them. And it's just terrifying, the hate. I'm afraid of all the hate.
We came together today to voice our stern opposition to the policies, the racist and fascist reactionary policies of the Trump administration, who is trying to take this country towards a dictatorship.
If you know anything about history, the history of Hitler's rise and taking over a democracy in the Weimar Republic, he's following the very same steps.
You see the same patterns?
Yes, exactly.
Joining us now, Reuters White House correspondent Jeff Mason and retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Brigadier General, I want to start with you. As the military man at the table, your thoughts on what you saw yesterday in Washington, D.C.?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of the United States Army. They did a magnificent job yesterday. I mean, they executed the mission, conducting this parade absolutely brilliantly and flawlessly, as I knew they would, and they always do. Having said that, it was a colossal waste of time, effort, and money. We don't need, that's not who we are. We don't do these kind of things. We don't march down the streets like that. We prove ourselves and our value as an army, our strength as an army, through our actions, not parades. That's something that dictators do. And I think the money that was spent, I mean, it's colossal when you think about it. $45 million is what the White House admits to. But this town was shut down for 3 days. It's still shut down out there. You can't get across the 14th Street Bridge, for instance. And you shut down the airport for 3.5 hours. Yeah, the tens of millions of dollars of inconveniences that were created. The town, Uber drivers are complaining. You know, the hotels have been shut down. I mean, you can't get around. And so there's a tremendous cost associated with that. We're going to have to fix all the roads, by the way.
Yeah, $16 million of the 45 is for the roads.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it was an incredible thing. And think about what we could do with that money if we had it instead. I mean, the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines out there, they need support. Donald Trump already stole $1 billion from Milcon, from military construction for the southern border. I mean, so there's barracks that are not being renovated. There's child care centers that are not being built. There are perks that soldiers and their families deserve. They're not going to be able to get because Donald Trump has stolen this money, essentially taken it and used it under priority. So I think that it was what happened yesterday, although wonderful to watch and behold, and it's great to see soldiers do well, it was a colossal waste of time, money, and effort.
And so, speaking of something to behold and watch, Jeff, you were there. you were on the ground. Tell us not only what you saw, but the people you talked to while reporting. Why were they there? What did you hear?
So the people I talked to gave an alternative view. I spoke to people who came from all over the country and came in large part because they support President Trump. They felt like having the parade was the right thing to do, was a good thing to do. A couple of them who I spoke to, I posed the question that the general was raising, which is that critics believe this is a symbol of autocracy and veering towards dictatorship. And their response to that was, no, it's not. Britain and France and other democracies have held parades like this. Why don't we do that too? So they felt that that was not a view that they shared, and they came out because they felt that it was a sign of patriotism and a sign of strength.
There was an energy at the rally that didn't seem super political,
correct me if I'm wrong, just from walking around D.C., everyone wasn't wearing MAGA hats. It was more American flags. It seemed a little more muted than other more overtly political displays we've seen.
The only thing I would disagree with there is I saw a lot of MAGA hats.
We're down on the mall, yeah. Okay.
There were a lot of MAGA hats down on the mall. But I wouldn't disagree with your characterization that it didn't feel super political. I was on that area, or in that area, on January 6th as well, 6 years before ish, and the energy that day was entirely different. Yesterday was certainly calmer. It was, I think, more about patriotism for these people than it was about Trump.
And almost a more touristy energy, too.
There was a touristy energy as well, for sure.
And let's go to the energy at the rallies across the country, because this is what I think is the interesting contrast. The crowd sizes at so many different places. Locations around the country. Let's just show some of that footage to get a sense of the scope of the protest.
And as a matter of fact, let's show Jamie Raskin at the No Kings protest in Philadelphia where he says, "We are not your subjects."
You are not our king, and we are not your subjects. We will never be your subjects. All of us born here on this land are citizens, and your executive order is nothing but bad graffiti on the Constitution, and we're going to wash it off today.
You know, Gene, he said that. He was on our show yesterday.
Yes. He was testing his work there. I was texting with some of the folks at Indivisible, and they say their estimate at this point, their conservative estimate, is 5 million people participated in these more than 2,000 protests around the country. You were in Alexandria and spoke at that protest, that rally. Talk about what you said, and more importantly, what you heard from the people that were there. Why were they out there?
Well, they were there because they supported the No Kings rally, and they want to essentially stand up to what Donald Trump is trying to do. I mean, he's trying to take down the judiciary, trying to take down the military, of which the parade was an example of. He's using everything as a political prop. He's trying to essentially build some kind of a autocracy in this country. And so there was a lot of energy in Alexandria. And probably, 5, 6, 8,000 people were there, crowded around one small little microphone and a speaker. And it was incredible. It was electric. And I think that shows that there's a lot of people out there. I mean, 5 million people that showed up at rallies. That might be a stretch, but even if it wasn't in that number, you had incredible energy, incredible power, and incredible anger at what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, and it certainly manifested itself in these rallies yesterday.
Well, speaking of anger, the actor Mark Ruffalo spoke at the No Kings rally in New York City. Let's listen to what he had to say.
As we see our democracy is in real trouble, we see a president who has made himself a king and dictator. This is only the beginning. This is an awakening of democracy. It's a reimagining of what this country means to people, what it should mean. They're pointing the guns in the wrong direction. It's not the immigrants who are taking anything. It's not that there isn't enough for everyone in this country. It's that there's a few very, 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 very wealthy, powerful people who are taking too much.
And you know, Jeff, what's interesting after listening to Mark, I would bring you back to the folks you talked to yesterday. I'm wondering if any of them mentioned the No Kings protests, or did they maybe push back against this notion that President Trump is not the things that we are hearing from the folks who were taking to the streets yesterday?
So I didn't talk to anyone who specifically referenced the No Kings rally, but I certainly talked to people who felt that anyone who wasn't, or who believed that parade, for example, was a sign of autocracy was ignorant. That was one of the words that came from one of the people I spoke to in the crowd. They just believe that it's different. It's a different worldview, and that's kind of the takeaway that I took.
Right. Two planets.
They're two entirely different worldviews of what a democracy is and who we are as a country and what's important, and also who Donald Trump is and what he represents.
And I'm not going to reveal anything, but at 9 a.m. we're going to have some new NBC polling, and I think we're going to see how that illuminates the images we see, what's happening with the political divide in our country.
Yeah. when you talked about the people that were at the rally, who was there, right? Because I think, you know, we had this fabulous woman named Beverly on yesterday.
Oh, yes, from Kansas City.
Who we're obsessed with. And what she said was that it was people that were Democrats, Republicans, independents, who they weren't just all there because they, you know, voted for Kamala Harris and like Joe Biden and they don't like Donald Trump. It's because they love the country, despite what the president said. Was that the same feel that you had at Alexandria?
Definitely the vibe I got. There weren't a lot of Democrats. By the way, I'm a Republican, okay? I was probably the only Republican.
You're burying the lead.
Yeah.
I'm not a Republican anymore, but I was, you know, a conservative Republican and whatnot. But, you know, when I saw what happened on the 6th of January, I said, hey, wait a minute, I think something's going on here. But, yeah, there was an incredible vibe yesterday. And you had all kinds of people that were out there. But I admit there was mostly Democrat, mostly left-leaning folks. And they were very, very concerned about what's going on in our country, as was I. And they came out to show that their support of what's going on to stand up to Donald Trump.